Investing Insights with Right Property Group, exploring trends in real estate and helping property investors gain financial security.
Hello everyone and welcome to Property Investing Insights. And I'm excited today because I was trying to snare one person to get into this podcast and drill down into all of the working bits of how she managed to get to where she is with the adversities that she faced and the decision-making process. And of course, along the way, we're going to unravel some gems over here. And certainly, one of the things I was going to do was get a free consult while she's here. So I'm talking about none other than Dr. Anna Pham, who's been a friend for quite a while. She gave me the opportunity to talk to a whole bunch of doctors at the FICO seminar, which is giving financial education to all of these GPs and specialists and the medical profession. So Anna, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. I still don't like these headphones on my head.
No, they make you look really like a broadcaster. So.
Oh, okay. I'll remind myself of that.
Yeah, and it took us a while to get here because we've been sorting out dates and all that sort of stuff. But you are a medical doctor. Yeah, so
I'm a medical doctor as opposed to a PhD doctor. That's right.
Yes.
I'm a GP from Southwest Sydney. Grew up there.
Yeah.
I'm also a mum of two kids. Our kids' ages are quite similar.
Yes.
And as you alluded to before, I am a co-founder and CEO of a group called Investing for Doctors. And in that group, it's our mission to educate doctors on everything that's non-medical. So we're touching on finance, we're talking on investing, on wealth, on mindset, on things that's actually quite a taboo subject in medicine. And we just wanted to disrupt that doctrine, I suppose, and normalize it because we think that as doctors would probably become better clinicians if we had that peace of mind, which is the end game of having that security, financial security that everyone deserves to have, no matter what pay grade they're in.
Yeah, and this is quite common, right? When we look at different professions, we sort of think that, well, because they've gone through that education, they would be financially savvy and they all would be investing. So we tend not to talk about those things. And it's just not limited to just the medical profession. There are other professions as well where when I'm dealing with a lot of clients who have different walks of life, it is something that's very common, like the assumption of general knowledge about everything, right? You are specialized in one field.
Yes.
But there's that big assumption that you're going to be knowing everything.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, if my kids are listening, yes, Dad knows everything.
So does my kid's mum. Yes. I know everything. Yeah. I am always right.
That's it. That's it. Even if we're not right, we're right.
We're right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So the intent of today's session really, Anna, is to drill down as to your journey because my intention is that as we uncover that journey, the listeners will get the decision-making process, how you've gone through what you've gone through, and certainly we can take away the gems from there, right? And one of the things that really stuck out to me, we've known each other for years, right? And it's only very recently that we realized that we're practically neighbors.
That's right. We live not far from each other, and we didn't realize that.
That's it, right? So it's, I guess, because of the assumption, right? So the assumption that you assumed I live somewhere else and I assumed you live somewhere else and we didn't ask the questions, right? And that plays a big part in the journey, not knowing where you live, but in terms of the assumption bit of it, isn't it? Right? So well, let's start with, when did we start? How did we start in terms of the journey itself?
The property journey itself? So as I mentioned earlier, I come from a working class family. So I'm Vietnamese by birth and my family came to Australia on refugee status. So blue collar class upbringing, lived very simply, and basically didn't know anything about investing or wealth creation.
Yep.
It wasn't until I pretty much got married and my husband, my then husband and I bought our first home and then had the plan to perhaps purchase one per year because we thought it was the right thing to do in the wealth creation because that's what we had heard about. And we managed to do that for a few years until we got divorced. So I was just doing a quick number crunching before we started Victor. And basically, we had acquired 5 residential properties together.
Okay.
And then after the divorce, I kept 2 of those. I went into a 4-year hiatus, as one does when one is undergoing grief of any nature, and didn't buy anything for 4 years. After those 4 years, I think that's when my life reset and when the Anna of today came to be.
Yeah. So you had the aha moment after 4 years, or was there any catalyst that actually got you restarted again?
Mindset's a really important thing, right? But you don't realize it until you've gone through it and you reflect back on it.
Yeah.
Being brought up in an Asian family, I was a really good child. I did everything that was expected of me. I excelled at school. I did medicine. I got married, and my parents loved his family, and they're just wonderful people. I didn't put a foot wrong. So when I went through this divorce, that was a huge shock to us, but also to our family and to our extended family and to their friends. But I've learned that a shock is sometimes what's needed for me to reset.
Yeah.
It made me reset my entire life. It made me reset my focus, my goal, my direction, and how I just planned and cultivated my life from there on in.
So it made you reassess everything.
It made me reassess everything. I had a really strong why. So my why growing up was always to survive. And then when I became a single mother, my why was to take care of my kids and to do what I could to give them stability, which is same house, same school, same environment, same friends. And I didn't know whether I was able to do that on a solo income.
Yep.
When I went into the 4-year hiatus, that was very much the goal of just trying to keep things as stable as I could for them. But in that 4-year period, because I thought I had nothing, I just worked and I saved and I threw it all into the offset account. And I spent very simply, basically just on needs only. Groceries, mortgages, fuel, that was it. Didn't want for anything else, didn't think I had anything to spend on more than that, and probably didn't desire anything more than that anyway. And it was only after 4 years, and it came at a very simple moment of driving from the house to work one day, and I noticed the sun shining for the first time. I noticed the sun shining for the first time. I looked at the neighbourhood. I saw the for sale signs. Obviously, property is always in the back of my mind. I saw some for sale signs. I made a connection with the real estate agent and asked for the prices of them, and it was worth double what I thought it was, because I remember going to bed the night before, i.e. the 4-year ago hiatus. I thought that villa would have been around $400,000 at best, and he just told me that he could sell it for $800,000. That jolted me out of my hiatus very quickly. And then I re-looked at my my numbers and realised that I had been so good. So unwittingly, I had saved. I had paid down my place of residence completely in the offset account. So I looked at it, and I basically then went into mode of
let's catch up.
Let's catch up. Let's catch up. 4 years behind, let's buy 4 now. And that's exactly what I did in that year. Yeah.
Okay, so you bought 4 properties in the 1 year.
Yes, I did.
Were they all residential properties or
They
the
were
commercial?
all. They were all residential properties. Yeah.
All in Sydney?
No. 2 were in New South Wales down the coast, and 1 was in Perth and 1 was in Queensland.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there is a story about those properties in the coast, right? So
No, this is not the
This
Malua
not-
Bay
oh,
one.
no,
No,
it's
no,
not that
no,
one.
no,
Okay,
no. The
well, there you
Malua
go.
Bay is more
Yes,
recent.
yes.
Yeah, but there is a story with the coast one. Basically, I wanted to be near the water. I knew that the Wollongong and the Kiama region was going up in price. It's an hour from where I live. Did a drive down there. The price was over $1 million. I had a budget of $400,000 to $500,000, so I wasn't going to get anything that was of any quality in that price range. So I kept on driving further south. Until I found houses that were in the
Until
400
you
to
hit your
500.
magic
That's
number.
it. That's it. Yeah.
So why 500? Why not spend $1 million? Because you had the capacity to spend $1 million at the time.
Because when I went to bed, that was my budget. So I'd only just woken up. So 500 was still stuck in my mind.
Yes.
And I hadn't quite readjusted that prices had gone up yet. And so I stuck to that number for a year. Yeah.
Well, there you go. And there's nothing wrong with being price band. Because it is the 2 affordabilities, right? So one is the affordability, like the financial affordability. The other is the mental affordability, right? The sleep at night factor that doesn't keep you up at night because now all of a sudden you've got $1 million debt. Now you've moved quite a bit since then, obviously. But it's certainly set the foundation for your portfolio, right?
Yes, it did.
And what led you into Queensland?
So someone I knew said that there was a good company who was selling really good apartments, and there was a lot of due diligence and facts behind it, and he himself was buying through this company. So would I be interested in coming along to their talks, which I did, and I was very much impressed by the gloss and glamour of the brochures. And I did. I literally went away with 2 apartments.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. And how have they panned out over the years? They worked out all right?
So they have always been tenanted, which has been awesome. And they have, in modest ways, gone up in price in terms of rental. Capital growth, 0.
Right.
Capital growth, 0. The Queensland one, I did get a chance to go and visit it very recently while I was up in Brisbane Way. Loved the neighbourhood. If my kids went to uni up there, I'd put it in there. It's very much equivalent to, I'd say, Newtown here in New South Wales. So it's quite a beautiful area. It's not high density, it's low density. Great location, but just no capital growth because since I've purchased it, the whole street's filled with apartments. Right? And that's the problem that you encounter when you don't buy land.
That's right. And that does flag that when you're buying the apartments, you need to look at the pipeline in the area as well, right? Because there's so much supply. Supply generally drives affordability, and supply drives prices, right? So if there's still good affordability, but there's lots of supply, it'll dampen the price rise. But over the years, as they get built out, you will get the growth happening. But you got to hold for multiple cycles as opposed to holding just the 1 and 1.5 cycle to get that big growth. And then you ended up buying. When was the next property? Where was that?
So in the second year, that's when I reached out to you, actually. So after having had some apartments and some residential, land banking was a thing that I wanted to do at that stage. And once again, I still had that $400,000 to $500,000 limit budget in my mind and budget. And I knew I couldn't get that in New South Wales. And so my accountant introduced you to me, and so I'm grateful for that.
Shout out to Manzurul Khan.
Shout out to Manzurul Khan.
He needs me. He does owe me a fee reduction. So.
And he said, you'll like Victor. Victor's in the health industry as well because you were an ultrasonographer prior. Have a chat to Victor because in that price range, you know that you have to look interstate.
Yes.
And yes, so I reached out to you for help to be able to source something within that budget that was for land banking purposes, and that's and you did.
Yeah.
You did. Maybe you can talk about Bellbird Park.
Bellbird Park. It was a hard brief to fill, right? And for the record, Anna's a very difficult client.
Liar.
And what we're looking for obviously was something that was relatively robust enough, obviously, to stand the test of time while we waited for that big growth and the rezoning. The zoning was already there, but we wanted it to have even higher density zoning, right? And we are literally across a shopping strip and some schools and industrial area. So it would fit in really well, and it was more of a set and forget. We didn't have any intentions of developing anytime soon.
No,
right?
no.
Yeah. So what was our purchase price on that one?
So we purchased it for $390,000. It's on almost an acre. I think it's 3/4 of an acre. It was zoned for 16 townhouses. And your instructions to me or advice to me at the time was, listen, just a street away, a similar size block was zoned 32 for 32 townhouses.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, if you're the first to develop it, there is a laneway behind you or a street. Any developer will be asked to develop that
put in
into
the curbs as well.
that's right. So maybe wait for the neighbours to develop as well.
Right, You see, the best development that you do is the one that you do last, right? So you want to be the last man standing because everyone's paid for all the infrastructure around you, and all you're doing is tapping into their infrastructure.
Yeah.
And have you had any maintenance on it? Major maintenance?
Not major maintenance. I'm surprised. I really expected there to be lots of major maintenance on it because it's an older property.
Yeah, it's not a pretty property.
It's not a pretty property at all, yet it's always tenanted and it keeps on going up in rent, like handsomely, because it's a well sought after area. It literally is a little shitty shack. I like my little shitty shacks, and it's one of them on this big great land, and hence it's called land. That's why we're buying it for land banking. But as you know, I've been getting calls now. Everyone wants to buy into that area and develop it. So when I spoke to you in March, there were offers of $1 million. I now get phone calls to say, listen, all your neighbours are selling. If we can go into this together, then we can negotiate higher. I'm now in between neighbours who want to sell. I think there's 4 neighbours who want to sell, and I'm right in the middle. They said, if you sell 2, we think we can ask for 1.2 to offer developer. But if you don't sell, then I think the neighbours can only ask for 1. I said, well, Victor told me not to sell. That I think I can ask for more in a couple of years' time. Or I could develop myself.
Absolutely, And you do have the capacity, having gone through the journey that you have, right? Which we'll talk about your constructions in a minute. But things like that in the portfolio, a lot of people, what they tend to do is they try and do the development a bit too early. And the best time to do development is once you've got a few cycles behind it, so that you've got the equity behind you, so that if it does go pear-shaped, it only impacts that property and doesn't impact any of the other properties, right? So, and the reality is that you don't really need to develop it right now. It's tempting to sell, but you'd be selling a huge opportunity on that, right? Now, in the last podcast, I related a similar one in my portfolio where we're on a 6-acre block, also in Brisbane, and now we're getting all the neighbours in, and we're selling as a group, right? And what was purchased at $525K, it looks like we'll be getting $6 million.
Nice,
piece, right? So that the numbers make it quite different that way. Whereas in your case, the numbers are really literally only double a little bit, right? So if the numbers were similar to this, then yes, of course, then we would sell to then pay down the debt, right? But when you sell, you have got a big capital gains event, isn't it? So
that's
tax
right.
planning is really important along the way.
So you're going to sell?
Yes, I am.
You are?
I am.
Oh, awesome.
Because that'll pay down that on a whole lot of properties. And that would mean that relatively all of my properties would become unencumbered.
Yeah.
So certainly makes sense to
Yeah.
sell. The intent was always for the girls to actually develop it
Yeah.
at some point in time in their lives,
Yeah.
in their investing lives.
Yeah.
But this hugely de-risks it.
Yes.
And it brings forward all of my debt reduction program.
Yes. Yeah.
So, was it planned? Not really.
Yeah.
It's more of a windfall than anything else. Someone
Yeah.
got the thought process that, hey, let's get everyone together and sell. And I had bought it because 4 streets away, there were redevelopments happening on the acreages.
Yeah.
So I just waited and went far enough out, but close enough
Yes.
to still catch that wave when
Yes.
that does happen.
Yeah.
Just happened that the wave came a bit too early and it was more of a tsunami than anything else. Right? So king tide, as they say.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you have a planned approach towards investing, right? And we're not speculating in that sense.
Yes.
Like just like your property, it had the zoning then and there, and even if it didn't have the zoning, it can stand on its own 2 legs as a buy and hold investment.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing you need to look at with any investments. Right? So after that, we went into more acquisition mode.
After that, we then, so one of the properties that did not go to me in the divorce went back on the market. So it had been sold by my ex-husband.
Yep.
And then the new owners put it on the market again because they were going to develop it. So it was a resi area that had been rezoned.
Yes.
And then they thought they were going to build something. They decided not to, and so it went back on the market. And I loved that property.
Yep.
You know, I was the one who had negotiated on that property.
A bit of emotional.
Yeah, so that I did have an emotion, but I had a purpose for that property. Long story short, I attended the auction. I reckon I was duped and auctioned against myself, and but I repurchased it at double the price that I had purchased it first time.
So how long was the gap between you selling it, someone buying it, and now you rebuying it?
Oh, I would say around 5-6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've gone through at least one and a half cycle in Sydney. This is in Sydney.
This is in Sydney. Yes. Yeah. Southwest Sydney.
Yep.
Yeah. So reacquired that, and that in itself is a story of construction woes, and anything that could go wrong went wrong in that. But that's okay. I now have become quite literate when it comes to construction and the legal ramifications, and knowing what to do and what not to do when it comes to commercial construction.
Let's explore that a bit more. So what happened there?
So I made quite a few mistakes. The first mistake I made was still having that really fixed mentality and being price conscious. So I chose the cheapest builder from the 6 tenders. And while I thought that the architect would make a great project manager because he drew the plans, so it's a natural transition, and he was very affordable. As we've mentioned before, that a specialist in one area doesn't make you a specialist in another area. Well, the combination was to my detriment. So while it was cheap on paper, it became really, really expensive because of the mistakes. So we were making prepayments on the invoices.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Materials would come. Some came, some didn't come. Things were semi-constructed, and then by the $1 million mark, the builder declared bankruptcy.
So you were basically funding the developers' projects by prepaying.
That's right. I was pretty much funding his other projects that he was doing. It was a pattern. You know, you underquote, you get the job, you don't have enough to pay for the project. You scam the next buyer and they fund your project. Unfortunately, I don't think he had someone to fund my project while I was funding his other one. But that's exactly what happened. And like all good scammers, they cover the tracks really well. And so in commercial property, one doesn't need to have building insurance.
Correct.
He had to have public liability insurance, but there was no building insurance, unlike residential property where you must hold one.
Yes.
So I couldn't go after him for builder's insurance. his business was insolvent, so there was nothing to be gained from there.
You had overpaid the invoices anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And there was nothing that was structured under his name, not even the family car.
Right.
He had lost the family car through bad money management as well.
Yep.
Therefore, he had nothing, and therefore there was nothing to sue.
Yep.
Right. So in this whole deconstruct or construct, the majority of, my contract was with the builder. So the builder was responsible for delivering the product to me, as well as the opportunity cost of delayed construction. In this case, I couldn't claim a single thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So obviously, I do the same thing, not in terms of prepaying invoices, but I do a lot of constructions, right? So one of the things I do is take out a contract works insurance, right? So I pay good money for good insurance brokers to workshop the scenario to see, okay, how can I de-risk it as much as possible, right?
Yeah.
So especially when you're talking commercial construction, you're not protected under the scheme where if the builder goes bust, there's something that you can claim on, right? Because they're not required to, right? So there are things that we can do, but obviously this was a learning curve for you, right? Very steep learning curve.
A very steep learning curve. Very steep.
Yeah. So where are you now with that construction? What did you do after the builder's gone bust now, and now you had to unravel everything?
Yes.
And obviously rescue your money. So what happened then?
So this was COVID. It was meant to have been completed by May 2020. So I pretty much spent the next 2 years during COVID paying lawyers and barristers to clean up the mess.
Yep.
So $300,000 later, I managed to only get back $500,000.
Right.
So it was still pretty much all the prepayments was a loss.
Yes.
Right. So, but that was just to be able to clear the relationship at least between the builder and I.
Yeah.
It would seem to any person that it was clearly the builder's fault, but actually they had grounds to say that no, we did what we could. You could have reconstruct on top of what we've done, and the loss wasn't that great.
Yep.
So we had to prove that wasn't the case. So it was a dirty game, but so we had to do that. Learnt my lesson and did everything
by the book.
By the book. No longer worked with cowboys in the construction industry. So basically hired a project manager who was, very well versed in construction and very risk averse and very detailed and methodical.
Yep.
So he made for a great project manager, and he cost way lots more, but everything's working out. So he's doing his job well. The builder came, so we re-tendered it. We got another half a dozen again, and this time I didn't go for the cheapest.
Yep.
Didn't go for the most expensive, but I didn't go for the cheapest either. And they also came by recommendation. People have worked with them, had an end product, was happy with it, and I am happy with it.
So what are we building?
So we're building a medical hub.
Right.
Yeah, we're building a double-story medical hub whereby the specialists are going upstairs. Connect medical specialists will go upstairs, and that will be that. And then downstairs will be more of a general practice and skin hub. So general medicine plus skin cancer plus Medispa. And then you'll have your other suite of services like psychology, psychotherapy, pathology, and the works.
In an area where the population is absolutely exploding.
Absolutely exploding. Yeah.
So you've come from now purchasing properties and land banking to now construction of a medical hub. Yeah. What was the thought process behind it? How did you come to that decision, and what were the sleepless night factors in there?
The decision, so in the medical industry, one needs that continuity of care with the patients. And so when you set up practice, you don't tend to move.
Yep.
right? And so I've always wanted to own my own. So the practice that I'm currently working at, and I also own, we rent that space.
Yep.
And I see that the CPI plus 3% increase over 20 years, it's now a lot of rent.
And you're not getting the growth on the property.
And I'm not getting the growth on the property. Yes, yes. And so it's always been a goal to purchase our own property if we were to expand beyond that medical center. And so this is it. Yeah.
So you've taken your experience in residential property,
yes,
seen the growth there.
Yes.
You're waking up after 4 years and seeing
yes,
the doubling effect
yes,
there. And you just transpose that to saying, okay, how can I make it work in my workspace?
Yes, yes, yeah.
So that's a big leap for someone that's gone through all that you've gone through.
Yeah.
Right? And what would you have done differently if you were to do it all over again?
I've learned a couple of things about myself. So if the power of property is in leverage, so far, as you know, my LVR is so low because I don't leverage on my properties. Yep. I pay that down on them. I pay P&I, and therefore LVR is now really, really low. And I'm not borrowing against it. Each of my property is standalone.
Yep.
And I did that because one of my fear being a single mother was if something happened to me, I didn't want to pass on debts to the children.
Yep.
But it also meant that if you've got a resi property and you don't sell, so I've learnt that I'm a holder.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not leveraging, I'm not selling, I'm not making anything from it.
Yeah.
Right? So I then reversed my strategy to say, I've got to do something differently to get a bit of cash flow. And that's when I started looking at construction, at commercial property, at perhaps looking at properties that's residential, but will give me cash flow as well.
Yep.
And that's where you love Malua Bay, you know,
yes,
my shitty shack down in Malua Bay that we all love because it's cliff top. It was the ugliest house on a street that's still very much in a developing area. I can't afford cliff top within 1 hour of Sydney, but I can afford cliff top 4 hours of, from Sydney. And I have got plans in DA for 4-bedroom duplexes on each side. And I think I'll get a handsome sum when I rent that out as a holiday rental or Airbnb in addition to personal use. So that's where I'm at the moment, where I'm going to be looking for properties, either residential or commercial, that will give me both capital growth and good rental returns.
So what I'm seeing in this journey is that you started off with as a passive investor, right?
Yes.
Buy and hold,
Yes.
don't do anything to it, to becoming an absolute dynamic investor where you're not afraid to do constructions, you're not afraid to go out where no one else has.
Yes.
And certainly purchasing properties that don't look pretty to begin with, but making them look pretty by doing some really good developments on them, right? So what's the end game? Where are we heading with all of this? World domination?
A couple of things have happened during COVID that has really made me question my character, my leadership, and it's forced me to not be afraid to come forward and lead from the front. I say that in terms of my workplace. I used to think that if I was the quiet leader and just pushed everyone along, that everyone would be happy. What I've learnt is that a leader needs to cast a shadow and set the culture and set things by example. In the medical world, I suppose I've come from feeling like I'm an imposter without any credentials to my name, to perhaps realizing that in my story, in my experience, and in sharing it quite freely, that there's a lot of people out there who think that it may be useful for them. Even if it's useful to not do what I did, to learn from my mistakes and to avoid it, and to save them that $1 million that I lost in that project, then I would feel like I've had something valuable to say. And I think that's my end game. I don't worry about money anymore. I know that my kids are going to be well taken care of. The debts are under control. So I can relax on that front. But you'll see me working still as hard as ever. But while physically and literally I'm working the long hours as I used to, the mental space that I'm in is completely different. I'm no longer working to survive.
You're working towards a purpose.
I'm working towards my bigger purpose. And that bigger purpose is to, I love the fact that I can go to work now and I feel like I'm giving to my patients freely, my knowledge and my time. I do that in my coaching and mentoring of staff. And now in Investing for Doctors, I get the ability to mentor and coach the doctors as well into this space. I am by no means an expert in investing or wealth creation or in property. I am not, and I know that, and I want everyone else to know that as well. The only difference, the only value that I offer is the fact that I'm so open with my journey and open with my learning, both good and bad, and not shy to discuss money in a respectful and in a humble way.
Big difference in the Anna I knew to the Anna I know now. Kudos to you. So you have a big following on Facebook.
Yes.
And you've gone out and you've started to answer questions of these novice investors that are asking some really basic questions that you were asking many years ago.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And so how can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I think the handle is like Dr. Anna Pham. And you'll see me, I think all the pictures are the same. It's my round face in a green dress. That's me. I have got a practice in Picton, so Picton Family Medical Centre. So a shout out to all my staff who may listen, and to my patients as well. I love Wallandilly. It's taken care of me really well, and so I take care of it back. And we're about to open in Norellan. So if you're in Southwest Sydney, come by and say hello.
Fantastic. Yeah. So obviously you're starting to give back to the community now. I wanted to explore the Doctors Forum a bit more in terms of what you mentioned, that you're the CEO there and you're one of the founders, right? And how did that come about?
Right. So 5 years ago, Dr. B, who's also the co-founder of Investing for Doctors, he started blogging. He started blogging about his investment journey and put it on Facebook, and kind of invited a few doctor friends to read it and to learn with him and to share ideas with him. 5 years later, we've got around 25,500 people on that site, and it's strictly for doctors, doctors and dentists only. No spouses, no other medical except for doctors and dentists, and growing daily. You can see that the request to join daily. So that's that. It was only around 18 months ago that I approached B and Manzurul and said, listen, I'm a reader on the site and the questions are quite repetitive. How does everyone feel about perhaps creating educational content in a more structured way, so that people can get, easily accessible information when they need to, and in whatever form they need to. And that's how it all came about.
Right. Okay. So it's been a bit of a journey, right? And like everything, it hasn't happened overnight. There's been a lot of pre-work behind.
Yes.
So for our listeners today, what's a piece of advice you can give them if they're starting their journey, one, and then secondly, if they already have a portfolio, what's the advice you can give them based on your journey?
For doctors?
No, generally. Doctors is easy. Just go to that site and you'll get all the information.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's harder for doctors than it is for the general population. I think the general population. So if the advice is, save, learn the habits of saving, because without saving you can't keep your debt under control, and without savings you don't have money to invest wisely and create that wealth creation. So so learn to save and do that early and start investing early. For the doctors specifically, they need to be a little bit less risk averse. That's the biggest thing that I see among the medical profession. They bring their risk averse nature in doing medicine, which is the absolutely correct way to do things in medicine, to their investing journey. They're so risk averse that they are paralyzed by analysis and they don't action as a result, and they don't trust anyone. I don't have any big advice. All I know is just be sensible. Be sensible with your money. Don't spend more than you earn. Kids learn by observing your habits, so you must do as you preach. I love the saying, habits are caught, not taught. So if I want my kids to be a saver, I can't be flashing materialistic things around. Now it's fortunate that by nature I'm not a flashy person. I'm still laughed at by friends for having a $30,000 budget when it comes to a car. But I do spend big on experiences. So when I go on holidays, I don't budget when it comes to holidays.
I can relate to that. Absolutely. So the advice you're giving right now is so fundamental that it is very crucial, right? Because people, when they're trying to start investing, they're trying to look for that magic bullet, right? And the magic bullet actually doesn't exist. You need to do things in a methodical way, which you have done, right? And you've had hiatuses along the way. You've had setbacks along the way as far as the construction is concerned. Yet you're still out there fighting and still focused on the goal, right? And this is one of the things that what most people tend to get caught up in, is that if they have one setback, they then say, no, this isn't working for me, rather than trying to solve that problem to move on.
You know what it is, Victor? I think it's I don't feel attached to money. I don't feel defined by money. I don't feel my self-worth is not based on money. So even when I lost $1 million in this venture, I kid you not, I did not lose sleep over it. I was frustrated. I was cranky at the legal system, but I didn't lose sleep over it. I lose sleep over loss of relationships and personal relationships, where someone that I may have trusted, I trusted this builder, and he deceived me. I lost sleep over that. So perhaps if people kind of can reflect on why that one particular project that has gone wrong has stopped them from being able to move on, perhaps it's nothing more than the fact that they felt like their whole self-worth, which is tied to that project, had gone down with it. And that's not the case. It's just a project and a bit of money.
Yes, that's right. And 10 years down the track, you look back and say, oh, that was a good experience. It shaped my journey.
Right? That's right.
And I've had several of those experiences along the way. It's normal when you become a dynamic investor. That does happen. So look, we could continue talking about this forever. But before we go, is there any other thing that you want to share?
Get help. Ask for help. Ask for people in the industry that's been in the game for a long time. So, for example, obviously I'm here talking to you, Victor, and you're a buyer's agent. I've learned in my journey that not all buyer's agents are the same. I had a discussion with another person who called for advice last night, and I said, if you engage a buyer's agent, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I said, if you're engaging a buyer's agent, it's a bit like going to see a doctor. You don't know whether they've just come out of school. You can't make a guess by how young they look.
Thanks. I look very young.
And you don't know how many patients they've seen or how many of those diseases they've come across and diagnosed and treated successfully.
Yep.
So it's the same with the buyer's agent. You don't know whether just because they've got that buyer's agent credentials, whether they've actually even purchased a property for themselves before, much less be credentialed to purchase one for you.
Yep.
Secondly, due diligence is a big thing. Sure, there's a checklist, a 100-point checklist that everyone does. So, but how do you know that they stick to it? Or what is their appetite for releasing it to the population at a certain point? So, for example, Victor, you may say, I'm not going to present that property to my client or to you, Anna, unless 80% is ticked on that due diligence. How do I know that you don't just accept 50% and present it to me because it's a dry month for you, you know? And I'm not going to know any of those things unless I either have researched you or know people in the industry that have worked with you and is able to tell me or give references of your reputation. So my advice to that lady last night was, can you not look at price? Because 0.5% savings from one buyer's agent to another makes very little difference when the right person connects you millions in that acquisition and in that deal. So please don't make it on price.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're all wired to judge things by price, right? And price is what you pay. Value is what you really get, right? And you need to focus on the value. So they're really good recommendations.
Yeah.
And certainly, I have the I have to work a very thin line because I can't really go out and tout how good I am.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
But my firm belief is that if you have a buyer's agent that hasn't seen it multiple property cycles across different states, unless they're very specific in an area, you should be looking at someone that's got that experience.
Yes.
Right? So,
Yeah.
So
of which you do have, Victor, so I can shout out for you. Yeah. Your team's amazing. Yeah. You have a lot of scouts on the ground, don't you? A lot of buyer's agents on the ground. You do interstate, so you cover all of Australia.
We do cover. Well, we cover Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide, right? So I don't touch Northern Territory.
Okay.
I don't touch Tasmania.
Yeah.
I've been on record as to why. Look, that doesn't mean that there are not any good deals in those areas. I think I can make it work easier in the other states.
Okay.
So, no, that's good. Anna, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
You've been trying to stop this for quite a while now, Victor.
I've been right in and you talk and she talks and she talks.
Don't worry, there's the editing process. Yeah.
No, we don't edit our podcasts.
Yeah.
You'll see that in its raw stage.
Okay.
So you're fantastic. It was good talking with you. And for the doctors and dentists, look up Dr. Anna Pham if you haven't already connected with her. And for the other listeners, if you found value in this, please share this with your social network. It does help us spread the message even further, and also helps give validation to all of these people that are working in the background that make this a success. So until next time, it's goodbye.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you.
Thank you.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature, does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs, and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you.